Have you ever experienced that quiet, late-night moment when the house is still and a difficult realization washes over you? It's the unsettling truth that as we grow older, the support system we once took for granted begins to change, shift, and sometimes simply disappear. Our adult children, who we love deeply, are rightfully consumed by the beautiful, demanding chaos of their own lives, their careers, their mortgages, their own young children. Our friends, our contemporaries, might move across the country to be closer to their grandchildren, or sadly, they might fall ill or pass on. This leaves you in a quiet room, facing a profound and heavy question. Who is truly in my corner? Who can I truly rely on, day in and day out? That question, if you're not ready for it, can hit you with the force of a ton of bricks. We spend our lives building relationships, investing in family, and it can feel like a betrayal when circumstances make us realize that perpetual, dependable support from others is simply not guaranteed. But what if I told you that this very fear is actually the necessary first step toward building the most powerful, most peaceful, and most dignified life you can imagine? As a family doctor who has spent more than 3 decades sitting knee to knee with people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s, listening to their deepest, most private worries, I have come to a surprising conclusion. The kind of real bedrock support, the kind that delivers true peace and lasting independence, often does not and cannot come from your family or your friends. I'm not sharing some abstract theory from a textbook. This comes from seeing real people navigate real struggles. I think immediately of a patient I'll call David, a 78-year-old man who found more strength, more stability, and more profound independence in the simple act of taking a daily walk than he ever did in the weekly, obligation-driven phone calls he received. His journey, and the journeys of so many like him, utterly transformed my understanding of what a truly successful life in later years looks like. This conversation isn't about casting blame. It is about empowering you. It's about accepting that beautiful, frightening truth, and then doing the work of building your own unshakable foundation. We are going to walk through the 5 true pillars of support that you can construct for yourself, starting right now. These pillars are silent, they are immensely powerful, and they will never, ever let you down. I urge you to stay with me through all 5, because the final pillar, which I call your personal code of values, is the anchor for your very soul. It is what allows you to face anything, and I truly mean anything, with composure and dignity. Let's start with the first and most tangible pillar, physical mobility. In my office, one of the most common and, frankly, most dangerous myths I hear is the belief that feeling stiff, weak, and less capable is just a normal, passive part of aging that must be accepted. We start making quiet, seemingly harmless compromises. We avoid reaching for that item on the top shelf. We opt out of that extra lap around the block. We convince ourselves it's just easier that way, that we're being careful. But my friends, this is a dangerous error. It is a slow, silent surrender that ultimately costs us the very thing we value most, our independence. Your body is governed by an absolutely simple, yet non-negotiable, law. Use it or lose it. This isn't a suggestion for fitness fanatics. It is a biological decree. When you stop moving with consistency, your muscles, which have carried you faithfully for decades, begin to atrophy. Your joints, which once moved freely, become stiff and ache. Crucially, and please pay close attention to this, your sense of balance starts to fade. That fading balance is the primary reason for life-altering, dangerous falls in seniors. It is a slow, insidious process that robs you of your confidence. One small decision to stay put at a time. Here is the hard, scientific truth. As we age, that use it or lose it cycle accelerates dramatically. A week of sitting on the couch when you're 35 is nothing. You bounce back immediately. But a week of inactivity when you're 75 can mark the beginning of a rapid slide toward needing constant assistance. Your body no longer has the same immediate reserve to regain what was lost. This is precisely why maintaining what you have is so utterly critical. Ask yourself honestly, does getting out of your favorite low armchair feel like a genuine chore these days? Do you find yourself inventing small excuses to say no to outings because you're worried you won't be able to keep up the pace? That is not simply your age talking. That is a direct symptom of your mobility shrinking, a warning sign that your foundation is becoming unstable. This brings me back to David, the gentleman I mentioned earlier. David walks with a cane now, and his steps are certainly not what they were 20 years ago. But he goes out to his local park every single morning, whether the sun is shining or it's drizzling. I once asked him what fueled this unwavering dedication. He stopped, leaned on his cane, and looked me right in the eye. He said, "Doc, the moment I stop walking is the moment I start waiting for someone to help me. And I don't want to wait. I want to live." David's mobility isn't perfect, but it is his. He owns it. And that powerful sense of ownership gives him a peace, and a power that no amount of help from his well-meaning children could ever provide. He still drives himself to his appointments. He meets his friends for coffee. And he is in control of his day. The science could not agree more. Numerous studies published in journals of gerontology have demonstrated repeatedly that something as minimal as 15 minutes of daily, consistent walking can drastically improve muscle strength, enhance balance, and significantly reduce the risk of debilitating falls. It is, quite literally, one of the most potent anti-aging and pro-independence tools available to us. So, please hear this. Do not wait for a doctor to prescribe it. Prescribe it for yourself. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is simple. Start with a 10-minute walk every single day. Do it around your living room if the weather is poor. The goal is not distance or speed. The goal is relentless consistency. This is the first and most critical step in building a life you can reliably count on. It is the best medicine for personal freedom. Let's move to our second pillar, one that, in my experience, causes more silent, nagging anxiety than almost anything else: financial simplicity. Most people instinctively believe that having a larger amount of money guarantees more security. However, over my 3 decades in practice, I can definitively tell you that I have witnessed far more sleepless nights and far more medical stress caused by financial clutter than by the actual numerical size of a bank account. I'm talking about the pervasive stress of constantly juggling multiple credit cards, the mental tax of trying to make sense of confusing investment statements, and the quiet, persistent annoyance of tracking down those sneaky, recurring subscription charges that pop up out of the blue. This is not a mere inconvenience. It is a profound health hazard. From a medical and physiological perspective, financial complexity establishes a state of chronic, low-grade stress. This keeps your cortisol levels, your body's primary stress hormone, slightly elevated all the time. This constant state of low-level alarm affects everything: your quality of sleep, your blood pressure, and even your immune system. Your brain is perpetually preoccupied, trying to manage and keep track of all these moving financial parts. And that mental energy is being stolen from your capacity to experience genuine peace and joy. It's like trying to drive a car while keeping the emergency brakes slightly engaged. You can move forward, but you are relentlessly burning yourself out. This issue magnifies as we age because our natural tolerance for this kind of mental clutter inevitably decreases. The complex, intricate budget that felt challenging but manageable at 50 now feels utterly overwhelming at 75. This feeling of being overwhelmed quickly devolves into a deep-seated, paralyzing fear. Will I run out of money? What if I missed paying a crucial bill? How does this show up in your day-to-day life? Be brutally honest with yourself. Do you dread opening the mail, worried that you'll encounter yet another complicated, multi-page statement? Do you postpone looking at your bank activity for weeks at a time? That feeling of avoidance, that small knot of anxiety in your stomach, is a bright red flag. It is your mind signaling that your financial existence is too complex and is actively causing you harm. I remember my patient Eleanor, a truly wonderful 74-year-old widow. After her husband passed, she was left to deal with a bewildering tangle of accounts, various investments, and outdated insurance policies. She confessed to me that she was so terrified of the sheer complexity that she started piling up unopened envelopes on her dining room table. She took a brave step, however. She didn't hire a high-powered wealth manager. She sat down with a simple, trusted financial advisor and made a ruthless plan to consolidate and simplify everything. She downsized to a smaller, more manageable home. She funneled all her scattered savings into one easy-to-read account. She kept a single credit card for true emergencies and shredded the rest. Most charmingly, she started a small, transparent savings jar on her kitchen counter, which she lovingly called her Captain's Fund. She would only drop $5 or $10 into it at a time. She explained to me, "It's not about the money document. It's about seeing it there and knowing visually that I am the one in charge." The best part? She said, "I used to be afraid of the mailman. Now I open every envelope with a clear head and a calm heart." What Eleanor found was not vast riches. It was genuine, profound peace. So here is your simple, yet profoundly powerful, action step. This week, I want you to take just one small action. Identify one single subscription or one small recurring charge. It could be a forgotten streaming service, a magazine, or an old membership that you no longer truly need or use. And then cancel it. The goal here is not to save a fortune overnight. The goal is to immediately feel the surge of power that comes from taking back control. You don't need to be a Wall Street wizard. You simply need to be the clear-headed captain of your own ship. Simplify your finances, and you will grant yourself one of the most invaluable gifts imaginable: a quiet, uncluttered mind. Let's move to the third pillar of a strong, self-reliant life, one that places the power of maintenance directly back into your hands every single morning: a consistent health routine. The critical mistake I see countless people make is waiting for a major health crisis before they decide to start paying attention to their body. They wait for the inevitable bad diagnosis, the unexpected sudden fall, or a scary test result to galvanize them into action. That approach is precisely like waiting for a violent thunderstorm to start before you decide it's time to fix that major leak in your roof. It forces you to live your life in a constant state of reactive crisis mode, and that is absolutely exhausting. A consistent routine completely flips that script. It makes you proactive. It places you squarely in charge. I am not speaking of training for a marathon, nor am I advocating for some rigid, complicated fad diet. I am talking about the small, steady, almost boring actions that you simply repeat, day in and day out. The unwavering act of taking your prescribed medications at the exact same time. The small ritual of doing a few simple chair stretches while the morning coffee brews. The habit of making sure you drink a full, large glass of water the moment you wake up. These seemingly small things, when performed consistently, create a powerful, self-respecting rhythm. Here is the vital reason why this is so crucial. Once we pass the age of 70, our bodies naturally lose a measure of their innate resilience. We do not bounce back from neglect as easily as we once did. A single night of poor sleep can genuinely derail the entire following day. Forgetting to take critical blood pressure medication can have frightening, immediate consequences. A consistent routine functions as a sturdy, stable framework, a protective scaffolding built around your health. It drastically minimizes the potential for error and creates a predictable environment in which your body is given the optimal chance to thrive. It dramatically reduces what we call decision fatigue. You don't have to wonder if you should take your walk. You just do it, because it is what you always do at 9 a.m. The symptoms of lacking a strong routine are subtle but profound. Do you often feel adrift, uncertain of what you should be doing next? Do you find yourself consistently forgetting to take your medications or missing meals? Does your energy feel wildly unpredictable, high one moment and suddenly gone the next? These are often signs, not of old age itself, but of a life devoid of rhythm, lacking the necessary grounding force of a simple daily routine. I think of my patient George, an 81-year-old former teacher. Every morning, like absolute clockwork, he follows his routine. At 6 o'clock sharp, he makes a cup of herbal tea. He then performs 15 minutes of simple chair stretches he learned from an old fitness program. He takes his morning pills. And then, without fail, he goes for a walk around his neighborhood block, rain or shine. I asked him once why he was so incredibly disciplined about it, given his age. He smiled and shared a thought I will always carry with me. He said, "Doc, it's no longer really about the exercise. It's about me telling myself every single morning that I still matter, that I am still worth taking care of. For George, his routine is not a chore. It is a sacred daily declaration of self-worth. And when you have that kind of ingrained routine, you naturally become far less dependent on others. You are far less likely to need your son or daughter to call and remind you to take your vital medication. You are less likely to experience the kinds of accidents or illnesses that are born from inconsistency and neglect. So, your action step here is to start incredibly, almost ridiculously, small. Do not attempt to overhaul your entire life overnight. Just choose one thing, one single action. Perhaps it is drinking that one full glass of water right when you wake up, or maybe it's doing 5 minutes of stretching before you brush your teeth at night. Do that one thing every single day for 7 days. That's it. You are not merely building a habit. You are actively building a foundation. You are proving to yourself, day by day, that you are your own most capable caregiver, and that, my friend, is a support system that no one can ever take away from you. The next pillar is perhaps the least visible, but I assure you, it is, without a doubt, the strongest. It is the internal glue that holds everything else together when the inevitable tough times arrive. Let's talk about building emotional resilience. We often make the mistake of thinking that genuine strength in our later years is strictly about maintaining a healthy body or having a comfortable bank account. But I have personally witnessed people with both those advantages crumble completely under the weight of deep loneliness or paralyzing grief. True, enduring strength, the kind that allows you to successfully weather any storm, comes directly from the heart. It is your deep ability to feel profound emotions, sadness, anger, loss, but critically, to not be drowned by those feelings. The common misconception is that being emotionally resilient means you must appear brave or put on a stoic face all the time, that you don't feel sad or angry. That is simply not true. In fact, it is the opposite. Emotional resilience is the capacity to sit comfortably with those difficult, uncomfortable feelings, to acknowledge them fully and internally say, "This absolutely hurts, but I can handle it." And then you allow that feeling to pass through you without letting it take root and establish a permanent home inside your soul. It is the profound difference between being in a storm and being the storm. As we progress through life, this crucial skill becomes essential, not just optional. By this age, life has guaranteed us a full curriculum of loss. We lose beloved spouses, we lose lifelong friends, we lose certain physical abilities, and we lose the defining professional roles that once shaped our identity. If our emotional well-being is entirely dependent on everything staying exactly the same, we are setting ourselves up for chronic, inescapable pain. Since our physical bodies naturally become more fragile with age, our emotional core must become proportionally stronger and more flexible to compensate. It must become our primary, internal source of stability. What are the common symptoms of low emotional resilience? It's feeling like your entire week is ruined simply because your son was late calling you. It's falling into a deep, protracted funk for weeks after a casual friend moves away. It's a constant sense of bitterness or victimhood regarding the natural, inevitable changes that accompany aging. It is the crippling fear of feeling pain that causes you to close yourself off completely from new people and new experiences. It is when your emotional world shrinks until it becomes almost impossibly small. I learned the greatest practical lesson on this from a woman I'll call Susan, a 77-year-old patient whose husband of 50 years had recently passed. The loneliness, in her own words, was a palpable, physical weight on her chest. I asked her how she managed to get through the evenings, which were always the hardest time. She told me she started a small, sacred ritual. Every night, before she climbed into bed, she lights a single, small candle. She said, "Some nights I just sit and openly cry. Other nights, I might remember a funny, shared story and laugh out loud to an empty room. But no matter what happens, I sit with that flickering flame for a few minutes. It reminds me that even in the absolute deepest dark, there is still light. It is my way of honoring the pain and giving it space, without ever allowing it to swallow me whole." That simple, personal act, That is resilience in its purest, most powerful form. So, how do you actively build this? Your immediate action is not to stop feeling, but to start noticing. The very next time you feel a strong wave of frustration, grief, or deep sadness wash over you, don't immediately try to distract yourself by turning on the television or reaching for a snack. Just stop. Take a slow, deliberate breath, and internally say to yourself, "This is frustration. I am feeling frustrated right now." By simply naming the feeling, you immediately separate yourself from it just a little bit. You instantly become the person experiencing the feeling, not the feeling itself. Practice this small, quiet act of awareness every day. It is the vital first step in learning how to securely hold your own sorrow without it breaking you. This is how you develop into a safe, reliable harbor for yourself, steady and strong, regardless of how rough the seas become. We have arrived at our fifth and final pillar, and just as I promised, this one is truly the anchor for your soul. It is the solid internal compass that will keep you absolutely steady when every other external factor in the world is shifting or disappearing. I'm talking about the profound act of creating and consciously living by a personal code of values. For the majority of our adult lives, our identity is powerfully tied to our external roles. We are defined as a parent, an executive, a spouse, an engineer, a teacher, a nurse. These roles come with a built-in, external set of expectations that efficiently guide our behavior and our decision-making. But what happens the day you retire? What happens when the children are fully grown and gone, or when your spouse is no longer by your side? Those external guideposts suddenly vanish, and this void can leave you feeling profoundly lost, wondering, who am I now? What is my purpose today? This is the exact point where I see so many people falter. They look outside of themselves for a renewed sense of purpose, waiting passively for someone else, a new hobby, a call from a child, to give them a reason to get out of bed in the morning. But the most peaceful, most grounded, and most dignified seniors I have ever known do the opposite. They look decisively inward. They are guided not by a job title or a family role, but by a simple, crystalline set of personal rules for living. A personal code. Why does this concept become so profoundly important in our later years? Because it instantly makes you completely independent of other people's opinions, validation, and actions. Your day-to-day peace of mind no longer depends on whether a loved one approves of you, or calls you, or remembers to check in on you. Your profound self-worth then comes from a much deeper, more personal place. The unshakable knowledge that you are living your life in a way that is rigorously true to your deepest, most authentic self. This internal validation is entirely unshakable. When you possess a clear, personal code, you immediately stop being a frail leaf that is blown about helplessly by the winds of circumstance. Instead, you become the powerful, deeply rooted tree itself. The clear symptom of not having a clear code is a pervasive feeling of aimlessness. It's feeling easily offended or excessively rattled by what casual acquaintances say or do. It's a constant, subconscious feeling of searching for something, but having no idea what that something is. It's making nearly all of your decisions based on what you think will please others, rather than what you know in your heart is right. It creates a life that feels ultimately flimsy and provisional. I once had the pleasure of meeting an 82-year-old man named James at a community breakfast. He wasn't famous, and he wasn't wealthy, but he possessed a quiet, unassuming dignity that was absolutely magnetic. I was curious, so I asked him the secret to his clear-eyed composure. He chuckled softly and said, "It's no secret, document. I just have 5 simple rules I follow every day. Number 1, always speak the truth, but always with kindness. Number 2, never waste food. Number 3, always return a borrowed thing in better condition than I received it. Number 4, forgive quickly, because holding a grudge is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. And number 5, end every single day with a clear conscience." He lived entirely by that simple code. It was his internal compass. It simplified all of his decisions. He knew, with an absolute certainty, who he was, and nothing outside of that could disturb his peace. So, your final, and perhaps most deeply meaningful, action step is one of quiet reflection. This week, take out a clean piece of paper. You do not have to show this to anyone. It is for you alone. At the very top, write the heading, What I Believe in. Then, simply try to write down 3 things. Just 3 non-negotiable rules that you want to guide your life from this moment forward. It could be curious, or show compassion daily, or always leave things better than I found them. The profound power is not in how complex they are, but in the simple fact that they are yours. This is not a mere intellectual exercise. This is the profound act of building your own internal support structure, a foundation of character that will reliably hold you up with quiet, faithful strength when everything else around you inevitably changes. It is the ultimate source of peace, because it comes from the one person you can always count on, yourself. As we bring our time together to a close, I want you to recall the beginning of our talk, back to that quiet, universal fear of being left to fend for yourself when you need help the most. Think back to the people we discussed today. David, fueled by his daily walk of fierce independence. Eleanor, who found a calming peace in a simplified checkbook. George, greeting each new morning with a self-respecting routine that reminded him he still mattered. Susan, lighting her single candle against the consuming darkness of grief. And James, walking tall, eternally guided by his own simple rules for a meaningful life. They all faced that same unsettling fear. But they didn't wait passively for a rescuer. They did not wait for their children or their friends to rush in and construct a perfect world for them. They did something infinitely more powerful. They became their own foundation. After all these years as a physician, the single most profound lesson I have gleaned from my patients is this: the most reliable, enduring support system you will ever have is not a person. It is a practice. It is the small, quiet, consistent things you choose to do for yourself, day in and day out, that collectively build a life of genuine dignity, strength, and unshakable peace. But knowledge, my friends, is only truly powerful when we put it into deliberate action. So now, I have one final, crucial question for you. What is the one small, concrete commitment you are making to yourself after hearing this message today? It does not have to be a grand gesture. It could be as simple as, I will take a 10-minute walk tomorrow morning, or I will finally cancel one unused subscription, or perhaps, I will write down just one of my personal values before bed tonight. No answer is too small to matter. What is that one commitment that you are making right now to become your own greatest source of support?